Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And this is my interpretation of what it looks like to have your natal moon in the nakshatra of Vishakha. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we get into this, we first have to understand what the moon represents, and then we have to break down this nakshatra of Vishakha. Just a quick disclaimer that this is not according to Western tropical astrology. This will be according to Vedic astrology, which is using the sidereal zodiac. So if you are not familiar with what your sidereal moon sign is, there is a link to a calculator down below in the description so that you have the correct information. The moon is one of the most important grahas in Vedic astrology. The moon is representing your mind. Therefore, the moon represents everything that is happening within your life. The moon is a reflector. It is a projector. Everything that is in your mind becomes a manifestation within your physical reality. In the same way, you are perceiving everything that is happening within your reality. So the moon is projecting what is in your mind and is reflecting everything within your reality. The moon represents your body, your health, your vitality, how you are interacting with others. When people are coming across you and you are making connections, this is the personality that is coming forward. The moon represents your social standings, how you fit into society, how you're able to adapt and relate to others. The moon is also popularity and beauty. The moon is representing the mother, your connection to your mother, what kind of nurturing you need emotionally, what is making you feel emotionally satisfied. The moon is also representing all of the fluid in your body. So it is connected to your water intake. It is connected to your nourishment, all of your needs that need to be met. The moon is a very personal planet that has to do with your emotions, how you react, and how you are responding to situations around you. So Vishakha is found from 20 degrees of Libra till 3 degrees 20 minutes of Scorpio. And Vishakha means two branches, the forked one, or Radha. So Vishakha is also an alternative term for Radha, which is a deity that is associated with love, with romance, with devotion. And so this is showing the loving, the delightful qualities of this nakshatra. Vishakha has everything to do with devotion. This is a nakshatra that is very religious, very spiritual, very philosophical. These are individuals who are highly devoted to their belief systems and very devoted when it comes to commitments, relationships. These are people who are very loyal, very reliable people. This also is showing the strong devotion when it comes to work. These are people who are highly determined to be successful in life. And so they have a ton of willpower, passion, determination. These are people who are highly competitive, who are always planning ahead for a goal. They are goal and task-oriented individuals. There is a strong inclination towards winning, towards conquering, towards success that is found under Vishakha. Vishakha is represented by a triumphal archway or a gateway, which is representing the victory, the accomplishment. But this gateway also is representing initiation. And so this is a nakshatra that represents the doorway, the initiation into a new path. And this applies to taking on new goals. These are individuals who are very determined. After completing one goal, there is another goal that follows. And so there's always a new path, a new journey, a new project to take on within this nakshatra. Again, these are very active, very determined individuals, filled with passion and determination. This also is symbolizing the initiation of a spiritual journey. So these are highly spiritual individuals, and this is a nakshatra that is capable of great spiritual evolution. This is a nakshatra that tends to have to deal with the lower nature of themselves in order to reach this higher spiritual path. And so this can also be a nakshatra that is very excessive. The power of this nakshatra is to achieve many and various fruits. And so these are people with very high passion, very high desires. And so this can be very difficult in terms of excess. Those born under this nakshatra have huge desires that can turn into obsessions. This is a Jupiter nakshatra, and Jupiter has everything to do with expansion. We talked about in the first Jupiter ruled nakshatra of Parnavesu, where it was about the expansion of space and the expansion of being able to achieve anything and to achieve by retrying. There was an infinite ability to try again and again. Here in this nakshatra, this expansiveness is applied to the goals, the ambition that is found under this nakshatra. Huge desires, huge passion to achieve in life. And this can become overly excessive. There can be a tendency to lean towards addiction, towards over attachment, towards obsession over relationships, jealousy. There's a tendency to have difficulty with letting go. While Vishakha can have difficulty with detaching themselves from people or objects that they can become obsessed with, they also can have a great feeling of being detached. There can be a feeling of being alienated or being outcast from the group. These are individuals who can have struggles within their family, within their relationships sometimes, where there can have a difficulty in terms of commitment. There can be a feeling of others leaving them very quickly. Strong commitment issues or strong abandonment issues can come up within this nakshatra. These are individuals who also can spend a lot of time in solitude. Again, this is a highly spiritual nakshatra. And so these are individuals who take a lot of time to devote themselves spiritually to whatever belief system that they practice. These are individuals who also are very intelligent, extremely educated, again, very philosophical, very wise individuals. They have a ton of wisdom. However, this can lean to the extremes of becoming very dogmatic, very controlling with their belief systems. And so there is a need for balance here. Again, we're here in the sign of Libra. The first 3/4 of Vishakha fall within Libra. And so there is a need for balance. There are these extremes that are found under Vishakha. When one can balance out the extremes of life, they can find that they can reach a higher spiritual path. These are individuals who also can go through a great deal of transformation. The deity that rules over Vishakha is Indra Agni, which is a combination of Indra and Agni in one being. And so Indra is the king of the gods, the god of thunder, and Agni is the god of fire. And the thunder has everything to do with transformation. The fire also has to do with purification, burning away things that no longer serve us. And so this is a nakshatra that tends to go through deep transformation that takes them from this lower stage of their life, of this obsession, of this over attachment, to reaching a higher spiritual plane of existence. These are people who often have strong belief systems, strong core values, very family oriented, very much about morals and values. However, there can be difficulties again around attachments, around commitments. These are people who are highly individualistic. They are very independent people who are focused on their goals, which sometimes can create distance or detachment within connections. And these are people who others tend to rely on, who others feel inspired by. And so there is a tendency to be very much about the self, to be very egocentric here in this nakshatra, and not realizing how that could hurt or affect others around them. And so sometimes this focus of succeeding, of achieving a goal, can make them very single-minded, very single-focused on their goals, which can take away from their awareness. There is an aloofness of what is actually going on around them. These are people who sometimes can be manipulated, taken advantage of. And so there is a need to be cautious of who you are getting involved with. Who are you getting into relationships with? Who can you trust? And again, this can lead to a paranoia, a jealousy, an over attachment, an excessiveness within your connections. But there is a need to be very cautious about who you're allowing to come into your life, because there is a tendency to be easily influenced by others under this Vishakha nakshatra. These are people who are hugely courageous, able to overcome any obstacles in life, but there is a tendency to doubt themselves. There is an insecurity that is found within this Vishakha Nakshatra that often is covered up or left to be expressed in private on a personal level. So these are people who can struggle sometimes with an inner insecurity or fear about their potential. But there is a ton of strength, a ton of courage that is here where they have the ability to overcome obstacles very easily. So for those who are born under Vishakha, it is very important to not doubt the strength that you possess because you are possessing a ton of strength and power that is sometimes going unnoticed. These are people who can be very patient, very persistent, but sometimes there is an impatience of wanting things to turn out the way that they want it or wanting to achieve a goal very quickly. And this is especially true in the Scorpio part of this nakshatra. In the Scorpio part, the energy becomes very intense, very focused, very concentrated, where those who are born under that fourth quarter can run into frustration, when not getting their way. There can be a tendency to lean towards being as a conqueror or a dictator, someone who is being very controlling, very dogmatic once again. And so this is on the negative side, but for the most part, this is a very sweet, this is a very compassionate nakshatra when it comes to loyalty and devotion. I have found that there is an extreme difference between the females and the males who are born under Vishakha. So the men tend to be more on the softer side, very sweet, very compassionate, very gentle mannered. The females who are born under this nakshatra tend to be more opinionated, more outward, where they are unafraid to speak their truth, unafraid to put their opinions out into the world. But overall, these are people who are very powerful, very determined, very independent in terms of achieving their goals, accomplishing things. There is an ability to be very focused on success and achievement. These are individuals who never give up, who never back down from challenge. There can be a tendency to develop some envy, some resentment within this nakshatra also. These are people who sometimes can get frustrated, who can get irritated by being taken advantage of and going through very difficult situations in life. And they can harbor this, they can keep this internally, as this can build up and become very explosive, very destructive. And so one of the symbols of Vishakha is a poison vessel, and it represents holding on to this resentment, holding on to this hatred internally, holding on to these very intense emotions. And so this is very difficult, where this is something that needs to be dealt with before this becomes destructive, as the poison vessel really relates to karma. So as far as the Jupiter nakshatras go, and we'll talk more about this in our last Jupiter nakshatra, as that is the height of Jupiter's energy. Jupiter gives this expansive, this liberated influence. And so this is a test of our actions, of our morals, of what we will choose to do. So those who are born under Vishakha are tested to see if they will take a lower path or a higher path. And this is associated with this poison vessel. Now again, this is the branched one, the forked one, the two branches. And so this is a nakshatra that is very much about needing to find focus, needing to find a central point, a balance point in life. Again, most of this nakshatra is occurring within the sign of Libra, and there is a tendency to spread oneself thin within this nakshatra. Again, because these are individuals who are all about achieving, who are all about their goals, and there could be many goals that can stack up all at once. And so within the mind, when the moon comes into Vishakha, there is a tendency to be focused on more than one thing at once. And this tends to bring about a lot of mental difficulties. And so these are individuals who need to find a central focus, who need one thing to focus on at a time rather than spreading out their focus across many areas. This is going to cause some inner conflict. Those who are struggling under this Vishakha Nakshatra often are struggling because they are thinking about more than one area of their life at a time, or they're focused on accomplishing goals in more than one area. And so this is all about how can you schedule, how can you plan, how can you focus on the areas of your lives in a way where you are able to really pinpoint one area at a time and then move on to the next. Branch out from one space of your life to the next rather than having the branches go in all of these different directions. And so there is a tendency to feel as though your life is very chaotic, very scattered with this branched energy. But it is all about concentrating and focusing on the direction that you want to go in. Again, this is associated with Radha. And so these are people who often are very romantic, who are very much about love, about connection, very devoted people. And so these are people who you can rely on. However, there does tend to be some conflict or difficulty associated with marriage. And so especially on the female side of this nakshatra, there is a tendency to come across as very dominant, very strong personality. The females born under Vishakha have this very prominent and magnetic, this very captivating personality that can dominate over others. And on the male side of this nakshatra, there is a tendency to be too people-pleasing, too much about giving, too much about putting others before you, which again can lead to this resentment, this jealousy of actually putting other people in a position that you would like to be in instead. And so this is definitely an energy where you don't want to neglect, again, your potential, your strength. You want to be able to put yourself out in the position that you want to achieve. This is a nakshatra that is packed with a ton of energy, a ton of strength and potential. And so overall, these are people who tend to succeed in life. Again, sometimes there can be difficulties and disagreements with the family, which can lead to becoming very rebellious, very detached from the family. And so many who are born under Vishakha are destined to move away to a foreign place or to move far away from the family. These are people who have a great need for freedom, for independence here in this Vishakha nakshatra. Now, each nakshatra can be divided up into 4 quarters or 4 padas. And so we can take this 13-degree, 20-minute nakshatra and divide it up into 3-degree, 20-minute sections. And the first is falling under an Aries Navamsa. This is from 20 degrees till 23 degree, 20 minutes of Libra. These are individuals who are highly passionate, energetic, very impulsive, very direct. They are all about sharing their beliefs, being very truthful and honest. They're very focused on their goals, very outspoken people. They can run into some issues of becoming very frustrated, very angry with others, but these are individuals who are highly devoted, who are very compassionate, who are very focused on their devotion and connection with others, very relationship oriented. Those who are born under the second pada are born under a Taurus Navamsa. These are individuals who are highly materialistic. They are very business savvy. They have a ton of skills and are able to achieve any kind of goals that they have. These are people who also can possess a creative gift and can also be very skilled in terms of crafting, weaving, designing. Again, we're here in the sign of Libra. And this is a double Venus influence here. This is also a pada that can give a ton of wisdom, deep esoteric wisdom, diving into the occult, into the mysteries of life. And this is also a Pushkar Navamsa. And so there's great success that can come out of this. These are individuals who can go through difficulties in life, who can go through moments of ups and downs, but ultimately have the strength to overcome those challenges. Those who are born under the third quarter or third pada can be very philosophical, very religious. They can be social workers, people who are seeking to help in the world, very spiritual. They can take a higher spiritual path in life. These are also people who are often very curious, very intellectual, very educated people who love to learn, love to gather information. And these are also people who have a great need for freedom. They are often going to travel or going to have some kind of distance with their family members. They also can have a tendency to be very optimistic, to see the good in others, but should be cautious of being manipulated or taken advantage of. Those who are born within the fourth quarter are falling under a Cancer Navamsa, and this will be from 0 degrees till 3 degrees 20 minutes of Scorpio. So we are now officially in the sign of Scorpio. Those who are born under this fourth quarter are extremely willful, courageous. They have a ton of energy and drive, determination. Very powerful individuals. They also tend to have very strong moral principles. They are all about doing what is right, all about standing up for what's right. Very philosophical individuals. These are people who also tend to have an excess in emotion. And this can become very difficult on the negative side, where this can become very vengeful, very resentful. These are people who can harbor intense emotions and people who can jump into extremes. This part of this nakshatra has a tendency to fall prey to addictions.